So I grew up when TV shows were still in black and white, and I forget the rest of my story. See, that's what happens when you're that old. And when I was in fourth grade, I found the perfect hideout, and I had it for the rest of until all the way through high school. It was the choir loft of St. Athanasius Church, and there were 11 in my family, so I needed a private place. And that was as private as you could get. I would go to play the organ and practice, and I found out real soon that nobody else was ever there. It was just my hideaway. So when I got to high school, I'm still a very, very good Catholic girl, but I got this mad, deep crush on this guy a year older than me, Jack. And to me, Jack was full of mystery. His mother had abandoned him when he was a kid because of alcoholism, and his grandparents raised him as an only child. And Jack would cruise through our town with this green pickup truck with a road runner on the fender. And I watched him one day picking up Janelle's short shorts. She was the only girl in our Catholic school who dared to wear those short shorts. And I watched them disappear down the road, and I really wondered where they were going and what they were doing. I couldn't imagine, but I sure wished I could. So about this time, when I started going to my hideout, I'd first stop in the vestibule of the church, and I'd read the Legion of Decency list. That was a list that the church put out of all the indecent films that you weren't supposed to go watch. So I would study that list. I would just read those titles. Splendor in the Grass. Oh. And I wouldn't have any idea why my finger is suddenly massaging my lips. And then I get upstairs to the choir loft, and I suddenly start playing different music. I ditched the Gregorian chant, and I started playing these big hallelujah songs. And the biggest thing was I discovered the vibrato stops on the organ. There's 3 of them. So I'd start off playing real soft with just this light vibrato that, just kind of quivers the notes. And then pretty soon I'd put the pedal down further and the crescendo's building, and I'd put on the next form of vibrato, and the notes are quivering and shaking and throbbing, and so am I. And then I'd build to this great hallelujah with, full volume, full vibrato. So anyway, this Jack had no idea who I was. I'm too good, and I wore my girdle way too tight for him. And but then one day in my junior year, we had a new priest, and he decided to form a boys' choir, a men's choir. And of course, I'm the church organist, so I'm there, and on Wednesday night we have men's choir practice, and I am so intensely aware of Jack right behind me, and I pick out his tenor voice the whole time we're practicing. He still doesn't pay me any attention, but one Wednesday night I go downstairs, and he's there waiting for me. And he starts walking me home, and it's dark, and he looks at me, and he makes this incredible proposal. He says, "Would you be my campaign manager?" Oh my God, this, see, at our little Catholic high school, they were always looking for ways to make money, big fundraisers. So the kids got to vote for the court, 5 girls and 5 boys, but whoever raised the most money was the one who was crowned king and queen. So yes, Jack, I'll be your campaign manager. And I knew that meant that I would be his homecoming date. It was just an absolute dream come true. So I worked my tail off raising money for him. And I just kept wishing he'd ask me formally, for homecoming. So one morning I go to school, and they say, in the hallway, "Oh, did you hear Jack Demas just asked Jodie Coleman to homecoming?" Oh my God, Jodie Coleman. She's the new girl with this perfect flip to her page boy. And I was crushed, and they don't call it a crush for nothing. So homecoming comes, and I go with my parents to the game. And I stay till the coronation, and of course, Jack is crowned king. And that night, I go home, and later, I slip outside, and I go to my refuge. I walk upstairs, and I laid flat out on the pew, and I just sobbed my little heart out till I couldn't cry anymore, and I sat up. All the tears were gone, and I just looked out over that, that expanse, and I just had the feeling of all those years I've been there, and I thought, I'm going to be okay. So story isn't quite done yet. At the end of high school, my family moved out of state, and I ended up at the University of Wisconsin in Madison. And then when I was 19, I went back to that hometown in Iowa to visit a friend. And that night in the bar, who walks in but Jack Demas? And come to find out, he'd been drafted, and he was just back from boot camp, and the next morning he was flying out to Nam. And we ended up standing by that jukebox all night long, and he still had those beautiful brown eyes, and I still thought he was dreamy. And he ended up offering me a ride back to my friend's house. And yes, Jack. So we end up in this lane, in this really dark lane in the cornfield. And he turns and he kisses me. Oh my God. It was... This is what that vibrato was all about. This is what I've been practicing for all those years. And Jack took me to heaven and back. That was my first time. Oh, thank you. So he flew off to Nam the next morning, and we wrote that whole year in Nam. I was protesting the war in Madison. He was fighting it. And then a few years later, we got married. So we were married 21 years, and we finally decided to split, but I never did get tired of kissing that man.